Hey everyone, welcome to TPUSA Live. I'm Jon Root. Happy Thursday. And Isabel Brown, that's a great hat.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was going for like Hillary Duff early 2000s vibes today, and I really love that Gen Z is bringing back some of these trends.
We're 10 seconds into this and you're already bringing up Hillary Duff again.
Oh my gosh, guys. It's going to be a great day. We are kicking off today's show with the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Posobiec with Human Events Daily. John, what can we expect? Jack is going to give us the rundown.
He's got another little shade war update. So apparently the First Lady, Jill Biden, is asking the VP if they can get removed.
Yeah, apparently there's some interesting conversations happening there on Pennsylvania Avenue this week. I seem to think that there might be two different administrations going on at exactly the same time. Not exactly sure what's happening.
Yeah, these shade war updates are always great because if you remember, VP Harris did call President Biden racist when they were both running for president.
Indeed.
So I can't imagine they get along very well. And they don't really get along.
It wouldn't be the first time a president and vice president didn't get along very well, but I do think this is going to be really interesting if, in fact, the president and his family are asking how to get rid of the vice president because she's no longer convenient to their narrative. Also,
the Alec Baldwin situation, there's constant updates there. I know you had the sheriff and the attorney general talk about that, but there is prosecutors saying that charges are on the table for Alec Baldwin, actually.
Including potential criminal charges, which is going to turn into a very interesting conversation from such an anti-Second Amendment, anti-firearms advocate there, and Alec Baldwin being prosecuted for negligent discharge there on set. So going to heat up. Things are going to get spicy with that particular situation.
And then it's going to get spicy on the couch, too. So right after Human Events Daily, I'm sitting down with people like Isabel Brown here.
I will be back.
Host of On the Front Lines and Freedom Seeds. We also got Harvard grad, CEO, and a member of the National Speakers Bureau, Leyla Pirnie. She's going to be back. She was here yesterday. That was fantastic. Also, Real America's Voice correspondent, investigative reporter, Hernandez is here, and TPUSA ambassador, Laura Spears.
I am psyched for today's show. I love all of these people. They're phenomenal people in telling the truth and getting information out there on social media, and I think we're going to have some fun things to talk about.
Oh, yeah, especially like Enes Kanter of the Boston Celtics. I gave you a little bit of that story yesterday in yesterday's show open. He made some shoes. They were pushing back on slave labor, calling out the CCP, calling out Nike, calling out the NBA. All of it. We're going to break that down for you. Also, we got Professor Watchlist. We're going to let you know some of our newest members.
Ooh, exciting
You
stuff.
made it.
You made it onto our favorite list here at TPUSA, as well as an update from what's happening in Loudoun County. Oh my gosh, are things getting absolutely crazy over there. But I think this young girl who was unfortunately sexually assaulted in the bathroom is finally going to see some justice after what's happening this week.
Yeah, there's been walkouts and everyone's been talking about it, and finally we're seeing justice. We'd love to see that. We're going to break that down for you. On the couch. Right after that, we got some weekly shows. Real America with Graham Allen. He's going to be talking about the scariest moments of the past week, including something that we covered in yesterday's show. Congresswoman AOC. Gosh, the way she talks about Senator Bernie Sanders is kind of creepy.
It's a little creepy, I'm not going to lie. You know, it's fitting that we're in spooky season and all these really spooky things are happening in the government and in politics right now. If I trust anybody to make sure that we laugh through all of the scary things, it's Graham. So definitely tune into today's show.
And then after that, we got a Halloween special with Benny on the Block with Benny Johnson. He actually is going to wear a President Biden mask and ask people about the administration and try to get their reaction. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, that's scary if I've ever heard it. I'm not going to lie. Masks already are a little scary, and then you combine that with President Biden's face. I don't know. It's a little creepy.
It sounds like the only mask that Benny would probably wear.
Probably.
So that's going to be a great episode. Also, Alex Clark with Politics right after that. She's got another pop culture documentary. This one is about the Waco Siege. So she talked about Ruby Ridge yesterday. Incredible Politics episode you got to check out. I know she's on the road too, so you're seeing a lot of these pop culture documentaries breaking this down. But this one is an absolutely insane story, and it definitely changed the way we look at religious extremism in our country.
I would totally agree, and I actually got a sneak peek preview into
lucky.
today's
I didn't
pop
get one
doc.
of those.
Alex and I were on the road this week speaking at Texas Christian University on Tuesday, so when we were in our hotel, I got to watch it. It is absolutely phenomenal. You guys are definitely going to want to watch this episode.
And before we let you go and we get into Human Events Daily, actually this morning the NFL has changed their Rooney Rule.
You're excited about this.
I'm excited to talk about it, and I'm not excited for it to be implemented at all, but the NFL announced this morning that teams need to interview at least 2 minority external candidates for the GM and all coordinator roles. So this already is in play when it comes to head coaching roles. But now it's basically just saying, we don't care what your skill set is. the content of your character. It's all about how you look here.
Hardly surprising, but unfortunately, I think that's going to be the norm for almost every industry that we see in America moving forward.
Well, I think there should be a Rooney rule for NFL cornerbacks, because we haven't really seen a lot of white guys out there. So I don't know why they're pushing this with coaching staffs and everything on their teams, but that's what the NFL's doing. They're going woke and staying broke. But coming up next, we got Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. We'll see you guys very soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. On today's episode, we'll give you an update on the shade war between First Lady Jill Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. BlackRock Inc. becomes the first global asset manager licensed to start a wholly owned onshore mutual fund business in the People's Republic of China. Next, prosecutors say charges are on the table in the Alec Baldwin case. And finally, people were accidentally given the COVID-19 vaccine at an Army base. Accidentally? What's going on with all that? All this and more ahead. Human Events Daily. All right, so I tweeted this yesterday, and it's already lighting up a complete storm. Citizens Free Press picked it up. We've got news stations picking it up, radio stations. Everyone's talking about this. Let's break down what exactly is going on, because there's been yet again a new front opened in the White House. So it's time, of course, for a shade war update.
Shade War Update.
Now, this shade war update is quite simple. Jill Biden has been going around the White House, according to our White House official, asking if there is a process to remove a sitting vice president to the United States. This is quite simple. Now, the process actually does exist. Whether there's a 25th Amendment or a resignation, then the president would pick a new vice president, and that person would be confirmed by the Senate. So let's go back and let's listen to what the conversations were in the past that brought us up to where we are in the relationship, or the misrelationship, between Jill Biden and Kamala Harris.
Jilly, can you hear?
Hi, Jill.
Hang on, I'm going to put you on speaker. Jilly, are you there?
Hi.
Can you hear?
Jill, I'm thrilled, and thank you, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys every day. We're going to get this done.
That's great. How about Doug? Is Doug here?
Yes, let me get him. Hey, Dougie. The Vice President and Jill's on the phone, and they've asked us to join them.
Oh my goodness.
We're going to have fun.
Jill, we're ready to go to work. We're ready to put it all on the line for you.
Well,
We're looking forward to it.
look, guys. First of all, both of you. This is a team. This is a team effort. You know, this is team play. And
as we all know, she is a lifelong educator. She has spent her career fighting for access to education for all people. She has spent a career as the Second Lady of the United States, and even beyond, in fighting for our veterans, and in particular the spouses of military personnel. She has been a voice that has been about the power that women leaders can have, and she's just an extraordinary human being, and I'm just so excited to look at the possibility of her being in the White House with Joe Biden.
Remember, who was it during 2019, during the debates, that responded when Kamala Harris called Joe Biden a racist? It was Jill Biden. Jill Biden was the one that attacked her and defended her husband during those interviews when they were asked about what Biden's response would be to Kamala's attacks being a racist. This has always been the thing that started the misrelationship between Jill and Kamala. So all this fakeness, all this, oh, we're such good friends, everything's great. No, out the window. Jill Biden knows that Kamala Harris is the person not just waiting in the wings. She is the freight train bearing down on the Biden administration. And at this point, there are two administrations in the White House. There are two administrations in the White House. There is the Biden administration and there is the Kamala administration. And neither shall the twain meet, right? Neither twain shall they meet. This is a situation where Biden feels more and more imperiled. And I said this yesterday. And then we put up a tweet that said, it looks like that Ron Klain is going to start losing it and he's going to start retweeting stuff all over the place. Ron Klain, the chief of staff of the White House, because they are getting so incredibly desperate. And so what was it that Ron Klain retweeted just last night? And people can see that Ron Klain's, the stuff this guy posts on his Twitter is very, very revealing. You think he would keep his powder a little bit more dry. No, no, no. Ron Klain retweeted Eric Levitt, and what did he write? A bill that did nothing but establish universal pre-K $500 billion in climate funding and a permanent child allowance kind of seems preferable to the emerging grab bag of ill-designed, underfunded programs that are all set to self-destruct during the second Trump administration. Whoa, hold on, back it up a second. What did he just say? Self-destruct during the second Trump administration. Is White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, saying that there's going to be a second term for President Donald Trump? What's going on, Ron? What are you talking about? You worried about something? Is Jill Biden a little worried about something? The White House is running scared because they see their polling numbers in free fall. You've got people like Ron Klain trying to catch a fall. Ron, walk away, man. Walk away. So if you've been following the show for a while, we've been talking about the Great Reset. And the Great Reset is essentially Davos, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, a lot of this stuff tied together. It's essentially the financial remaking of the economics in the West to solidify our relationship with the CCP, to solidify and reformulate our economic relationships to the government, to the central banks, and make us essentially authoritarians the same way that China is authoritarian. It's basically as simple as this. I know that sounds like a lot. I get it. They want to emulate the system that the CCP uses over the people of China. It's basically as simple as that. So they use all of these different economic levers and financial levers to push into that. Now, the Treasury right now just pointed out a few moments ago that we are now having an inverted yield curve. What does that mean? That means that short-term risk is more dangerous than long-term risk, right? So the 20 years over the 30 year, what does that mean? That means imminent recession is possible. It's as simple as that. That's why a lot of people are looking to get out of fiat currency right now. That's why people, all the big guys like BlackRock, Blackstone, Bill Gates, etc., what are they putting their money in? They're putting it into land. They're putting it into real estate. They're gobbling up everything they can. That's why crypto is exploding right now, because all the smart people are saying, you know, it looks like the US dollar is having problems. So DYOR, do your own research on all that stuff. I'm not here to make investment advice, right? I'm just saying that is what is going on right now, and that's what the smart people are looking at when it comes to the markets, and especially when it comes to US currency. But when we look at BlackRock, and I've described BlackRock in the past as the operations arm of the Fed. We've talked about the ties to ESGs and how that becomes a corporate social credit score. And they're pushing this, they're forcing this on all the different companies around Wall Street and really essentially throughout the West. How do they do this? Well, basically, they're printing the money from the Fed. It becomes a loan. Then it goes to their good buddies in these wealth management firms or the big banks. And then they say, okay, but if you want some of this, you've got to get a good ESG, environmental social governance score. So what does that mean? Well, you've got Wall Street boomers that are left-wingers like Larry Fink that are basically saying, we need to push wokeness. I talked last week about Citibank and doing this racial quota, racial audit that they're pushing through. It's get woke, get not broke. They get woke, you get broke. That's the new thing. That's what they're pushing with ESGs. It is total control, a program of total control because, and this has nothing to do with free market, by the way. And this is something where I think a lot of libertarians and a lot of conservatives just kind of need to upgrade their software. They just need to upgrade their software, update their software, and just push it out to understand that we're not talking about a free market versus a controlled market here. This is totally controlled, and you've got corporations and government in bed with each other. That's the system you have now, today. So if you're missing out on that, if you're arguing something else, you are totally beyond the debate of what's going on. So, with the backdrop of all that, Consumers Research dropped this new, basically it's an attack ad on BlackRock, highlighting their deep ties, their deep relationship with the CCP. Take a look at this.
BlackRock, the biggest American money manager. Where are they investing your money? China, pouring in billions, propping up Chinese communist leaders, putting money into surveillance companies used by the Chinese military. Even left-wing billionaire George Soros knows BlackRock is harming U.S. national security. CEO Larry Fink loves to tell Americans how to live, but he negotiated against America, sucking up to China. BlackRock, taking your money, betting on China.
Really incredible stuff. And so they've dropped a new talking point, basically a memo, going through the highlights of BlackRock's relationship with China. BlackRock is taking your money and betting on China. In a new highlighted by an ad in Consumers Research, BlackRock is taking Americans' hard-earned savings and retirements and going all in on China. It's managing billions in American saving and retirements. Your savings, your retirements, and those billions are being poured into China, and you're cozying up to the Chinese Communist Party. BlackRock chairman and CEO Larry Fink has made China one of the company's top priorities, saying, this is a quote, "I continue to firmly believe China will be one of the biggest opportunities for BlackRock over the long term." In a letter to shareholders, the Chinese market represents a significant opportunity to help meet the long-term goals of investors in China and internationally. Do you understand what's going on? Your money is being dumped into the rise of China. Why are the supply chains having issues right now? The supply chain's in crisis because we are chained to China. Where does the supply chain originate? China. What is the chain? Our chain to China. We are chained to China. And you've got groups like BlackRock, the US Chamber of Commerce, and all of these other businesses that are setting things up this way. It doesn't have to be this way, folks. We are the American people. We can demand better, and quite frankly, we deserve better. You deserve better. The people of the world deserve better. Got some developments now in the Alec Baldwin case. A press conference was held yesterday by the sheriff and the DA for Santa Fe County. It was a very informative press conference, and they said a lot of things that I think people need to hear, because I remember that I was talking about this yesterday too, I took so much crap for going in on this, leaning in and saying this was a crime, and there are clearly criminal charges that took place here. Just looking at the basic facts of it. This was not just an accident. This was criminal. A woman died. Another person was shot, the director. You have to then determine who that criminal liability falls upon. It's as simple as that. It's the same way if there is a drunk driving death, right? Someone is killed, that driver becomes liable. Is it murder? Not necessarily, because again, it was not intentional, the person was not targeted, et cetera, but it is certainly manslaughter. It is certainly manslaughter. And I think that when those charges are filed, if and when, a conviction will be upheld, and it will be the right call, because again, somebody was shot and killed because of criminal recklessness and the negligence of the people involved in this situation for not practicing basic firearm safety, upholding the laws, upholding the rules that should be practiced anytime you are handling a firearm. And people will say, but Jack, they said cold gun. They said don't worry about it. No. Any person that's handling an inherently dangerous instrument needs to check to make sure themselves to ascertain whether or not it contains live rounds. Who should you trust when they hand you a gun and they say there's no live rounds in here? No one. Trust only yourself. Listen to the press conference that was held yesterday where they asked that very question.
What we suspect.
Sure, as the man who pulled the trigger and as a producer on the movie, does Alec Baldwin himself face the potential of criminal charges? And if the DA could perhaps follow up with that as well.
That may be a question better answered by the district attorney.
All options are on the table at this point. I'm not commenting on charges, whether they will be filed or not, or on whom. So the answer is we cannot answer that question yet until we complete a more thorough investigation.
But there is the potential for Alec Baldwin himself to face charges because you have not ruled them out.
No one has been ruled out at this point.
Is Alec Baldwin considered a person of interest right now?
No, that's you.
He's obviously the person that fired the weapon. So we're going to continue interviewing and getting the facts of his statements and the evidence and the case and possible witnesses or anybody that has any information. So right now he is an active part of this investigation.
Is he likely to be re-interviewed? Is he likely to be re-interviewed?
We hope so. As of right now, everybody is cooperating with statements and interviews.
And we've got more details now from the Hollywood Reporter. In a third search warrant filed in the Santa Fe court on Wednesday, the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office indicated that it was seeking to search a white prop truck that housed some ammunition and a safe that held firearms. According to the warrant, the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, said that on the day of the on-set shooting, she had checked for dummies and assured there were no hot rounds. And when the crew broke for lunch, the firearms were secured in the safe in the prop truck that only select workers had access to, with some ammunition left unsecured on a cart on the set. Now, in the same search warrant, the assistant director, Halls, said that normally when handling guns on set, and he quoted, "I check the barrel for obstructions. Most of the time there's no live fire. Hannah opens the hatch and spins the drum," that's the revolver, "and I say cold gun on set." However, before the rehearsal, when Hutchins and Souza were shot, Halls said he could remember seeing only 3 rounds. He advised he should have checked all of them, but didn't, and couldn't remember if she spun the drum on that revolver, the warrant reads. So you see a breakdown between the 3 people that handled this gun. And make sure the media says this, because they are trying to get Alec Baldwin out of this, but 3 people handled that gun. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, David Halls, and Alec Baldwin. 3 people handled that gun. 3 people committed negligence, and 3 people committed to this tragic homicide that took place on that set in Santa Fe. All right, thank you so much for listening to us, continuing to be part of the Human Events Daily community. And remember, to continue supporting us, to support the podcast, support the show, go to mypillow.com, use promo code POSO, up to 66% off, beat the supply chains, help American workers. Christmas is coming so fast. I know Halloween is this weekend, Thanksgiving is coming. We know that the trucking situation, it is what it is. The supply chains, it is what it is. Congestion is going to be crazy. So beat all of that. Beat the inflation, by the way. Get your orders in now. Go to mypillow.com, promo code POSO, and check out all of the savings you will receive. Let's get into this next story. Out of our friends at Terminal CWO, another massive scoop. What the heck is going on in our United States Army with these vaccines? JBLM had a flu shot tent set up. Now, this is a base, a joint base up near Tacoma, Washington. They said that they were giving out flu shots, but instead they gave people the wrong shot. They were giving them the COVID vaccine instead of the flu shot. How do you get that screwed up, U.S. Army? How do you get that screwed up, military? The Navy's got ships crashing into each other, burning down on pier side, and nobody knows how to stop a fire on ship. The Army's giving out the wrong vaccines when they're trying to give people the flu shot. And by the way, listen to this. There's new leaked audio again from Terminal CWO of a soldier going in and saying, by the way, you guys aren't giving us that experimental Comirnaty stuff, right? You're giving us the approved shots, right? Listen to what happened in this leaked audio.
Yeah, the brand name here, Comirnaty.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We just have the original Pfizer COVID vaccine.
So
it's just unusual that we mass give people something that's not FDA approved, except for an EUA.
Okay.
It says right here on the bio, actually, it says for use under emergency use authorization.
Okay. And is that all the ones we have?
That's everything we got in hand.
So they all say.
They all say that. Now they are the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19.
So you can. We'd have two standing orders actually. One for the Comirnaty once we get it. Okay, I see what's going on. This might be for when we get the Comirnaty. We decided to make a standing order for the Comirnaty, which we don't even have.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, really?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm like, because I think the other one was 23 August too. So they just made two. I'm like, why are you guys doing this? COVID's hard enough.
So not only are these people giving them the COVID shot instead of the flu shot, and the Army's already announced they're looking into that. They're going to figure out what the heck went wrong. Oops, sorry, by the way. But on the next stand, they're not even giving out the FDA-approved ones. They're giving out this Comirnaty stuff, which is still only emergency use authorized. This is the level of the U.S. Army. Jesse Kelly has a line. We're going to lose a major war. Folks, I got to tell you something. We're going to lose a major war. This is the absolute state of readiness in the United States Armed Forces. You're going to sit there and go through woke trainings. You've got the head of the Joint Chiefs saying we need to worry about woke rage. No, this is unconscionable. This is national security for the United States of America, and you are leaving us defenseless. And Taiwan, sorry guys, you're going back to Beijing. That's it for me today at Human Events Daily. So thank you for myself and the whole team for continuing to watch us. Broke 1 million downloads in just 6 weeks. Thank you for sharing this out with your normie friends. But folks, you have to continue sharing it out with your normie friends. Be the influence agent. We are not just about talk. We are about spreading these messages as far as the eye can see, or really as far as the ear can hear, I should say. But before I go, it's time for today's moment of history. And we're not going to go back in time. We're going to go only back in time a little bit here to last year. A tweet by Morning Brew. Shiba Inu, one of the biggest cryptocurrencies out there. Somebody put $8,000 into this back in August. It is now worth $5.7 billion. From 8 grand to 5.7 billion in roughly 400 days. We may be looking at the single greatest trade of all time. And that's why they want to shut down crypto. Ladies and gentlemen, you have my permission to lay ashore. All right, we're out of time for Human Events Daily. So from here, Washington, D.C., the beautiful, the palatial, the wonderful Turning Point Embassy on Capitol Hill, we are going to turn it over to Phoenix, Arizona, the headquarters of Turning Point USA, and it's time for The Couch. Take it away, John.
Thanks, Jack. Hey, everyone. I'm Jon Root at TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona, and this is TPUSA Live. All right, here's the rundown. First, we're going to start things off with a daily briefing, and then next, our guest and I will give you details about Enes Kanter, an NBA player who's calling out China and Nike. Then you'll get to meet the newest members of our Professor Watchlist. Finally, we'll discuss the Loudoun County school board situation, followed by one last thing. As Charlie would say, buckle up, here we go. TPUSA Live from HQ starts now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We're at TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. Look at the squad we got here. We have a great show for you. Hopefully you enjoyed Q and Events Daily with Jack Posobiec, but it's time to discuss what's happening in our world. We got the daily briefing with us. We got Leyla Pirnie here yesterday, CEO, also part of the National Speakers Bureau, part of TPUSA there. Glad you're here.
Good to be here.
And then host of On the Front Lines, Isabel Brown. Welcome.
Me indeed. Good to be back. I'm
Long
excited to
time
be here
no
with this
see. I feel like we
freaking
were
rock
just-
star panel.
I feel like we were just sitting here together.
I know, literally. It feels like so long ago. Yeah.
And then we got Drew Hernandez, part of Real America's Voice, also investigative journalist. So it's good to have you here.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. Excited.
And then TPUSA Ambassador Laura Spears, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Governor DeSantis, we've talked about him, Florida. All they do is win. They seem to be doing the right thing. And then when Governor DeSantis came out and said, hey, if the ports are locked up and basically not doing what they should be doing in LA, let's start opening things up in Florida. So this video actually shows you the Panama Canal and what Governor DeSantis and Florida are doing to make sure this shipping supply crisis is figured out. So what he was saying too when Governor DeSantis was visiting the port of Jacksonville, he said we have to make sure people can go Christmas shopping as normal. We have to make sure all the necessities are there. And if it's because ships are sitting off the coast somewhere else, they can be rerouted right here.
Who knew the North Pole was going to be in Florida this year? Not me, but basically Santa Claus has been manifested for me in Governor DeSantis. Everything that he has done has been so surprising to me because, in my opinion, other than maybe former President Donald Trump, he's the only politician I've seen in my lifetime actually do more and accomplish more than he promised to do on the campaign trail. What a rock star. I love Governor DeSantis.
Especially, too, when we've shown videos of Press Secretary Jen Psaki saying, like, well, you know, if you don't get your treadmill this year, whatever, doesn't matter to me if you don't get your Christmas gifts. But it seems like every single time Governor DeSantis is like, okay, if they're pushing these mandates, if they're not living up to their oath, I'm going to step up here and make sure the free state of Florida is getting things done. What's your response?
I just think it's interesting the response that he gets. Like anytime you look at the media, they're demonizing DeSantis. They're demonizing that life is actually returning back to normal, as if like they want us to live in this continuum of a bubble of just lockdowns and darkness and gloom, and nothing's ever going to get any better. And what interests me about that is how these people, when you look at the left or even some aspects of the right where people are kind of on board with this in the establishment, why do they want to keep us in this continuum of doom and gloom? Why don't they want things to get better? It's like even when things genuinely get better, they have to attack it. It's like these people just hate that.
Though I don't think that's an accident, and it may be confusing to people why they would want to continue to be miserable all the time. But especially for people in political power, I think that constant negativity and that constant creation of problems that aren't there is actually very beneficial to people on the campaign trail, because then they can point to those problems and say, "Hey, we still haven't solved that. I promised that I would do it, but I need a little bit more time. I need a little bit more time." So there's no incentive to actually fix these issues that may have existed at one point or another. Your incentive is to keep making them worse indefinitely forever.
Yeah, that's politics 101. They do it with the black community, they do it with minorities, they address the issues, but they never fix them. And they just want it to stay the same.
That's how you get President Joe Biden, who's been in office for, as he says, 300 years.
I hope not. That would be awful.
I know, right?
But there was news that came out too that COVID cases are plummeting in Florida too. So this is not just, I'm countering what President Joe Biden and VP Harris are doing and the whole administration. Like, no, this is actually working. So It's plummeted more than 90% to about 1,700 cases. But you were saying how the left always wants to try to figure out a way to, make this seem like it's a bad thing. Yeah. So Andrew Romano, West Coast correspondent for Yahoo News, had this to say. Get this: their supporters can give them credit for declining case numbers if they choose, but they're also accountable for how much damage each wave of an infection leaves in a wake.
What does that even mean? I feel like that's just like really fancy language put together to make things sound doomy and gloomy, but it's really hard to argue with the facts. Florida has the tied actually for the lowest case rate per day of any other state in America. They're tied with Hawaii right now. So population-wise, think about that. A state like Florida, which is one of the most populated states in the nation, and Hawaii are tied for the lowest cases nationwide. Stop buying into the narrative. Stop buying into these journalists that sound really good. They don't know what they're talking about.
It reminds me of what we talked about yesterday too. So when college football stadiums were all packed out, it seems like America was back. Dr. Fauci came on a mainstream news network and said, well, it's going to start feasting on college football fans. That got shut down pretty quick. But coming up next, we're going to tell you about Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter plays for the Boston Celtics, and so often on this show and Turning Point USA, and so many conservatives are pushing back against the Communist Party in China. And this NBA player actually had some viral videos speaking out against that and Nike. It's going to be absolutely incredible breaking that down, and we'll show you the shoes that he actually wore at a game calling out modern day slavery. We're going to be back in 90 seconds.
Critical race theory is the most racist thing that is being spread in popular life in America.
Critical race theory is bigoted. It is a lie.
Racism is now being taught to our kids.
Dividing kids based on race, trying to say some are oppressors and some are oppressed is absolutely unacceptable.
CRT is racist, it is abusive, it discriminates against one's color.
It's not critical race, it's racism.
Conservatives! Politics is now on TPUSA Live. It'll be here every day in case you want to hear me out along with the rest of the Turning Point USA team. Don't miss out on all the conservative.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country is very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for life, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. It's just the three of us chatting about Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter plays for the Boston Celtics. We got Isabel Brown, Drew Hernandez here. We are going to talk about how a player who is from Turkey called out the Turkish government years ago and actually isn't allowed to go there at all. So he's been shunned from his home country, and then now he just continues to just blast different governments around the world. And we definitely stand by Enes Kanter here.
Yes, we do.
So he actually had a viral video basically calling out the Chinese Communist Party, saying free Tibet. This is what he had to say.
Brutal dictator of China, Xi Jinping, I have a message for you and your henchmen. I will say it again, again, and again, loud and clear. I hope you hear me. Free Tibet, free Tibet, free Tibet.
And it's so powerful too. It's a 3-minute video, so make sure you go online and check out Enes Kanter on his social media, because this is a whole rant about people of Tibet, how they need freedom, and the way that they are being oppressed and treated by the Chinese Communist Party.
I think it's so powerful, John, and you and I have had several conversations about this, when professional athletes most recently have started stepping out of their traditional arena of just playing their sport, of being involved in the athletic community, and speaking up for actual human rights atrocities that are happening across the world, not just here in America, but as we're also seeing in China. I love that it's been the NBA really leading the charge for that. It's really unexpected for me, because I think the NBA was really the first group to go the most woke, the farthest that they possibly could in bed with the left, and even with the Communist Party of China. But now you're starting to see these individual players come out and speak the truth and leave a legacy that's so much bigger than just playing the sport that they were hired to play.
Because the NBA too, like they are definitely still in bed with China. But to see individuals now, like the NBA does not know what to do. They are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and we love to see them there because there is so much money in China. They have broadcasting rights in China. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And then also they have just such a massive fan base. There's a reason where they go out there and they play these games and they have these big tournaments and they try to have some sort of influence there in China because there is money to be made in China. So it's great to see individuals say, like, I don't care if I'm hired by the NBA at all. I'm speaking out. I'm going to speak the truth.
I just think it's interesting because you look at the NBA, right? And this is the same reason why John Cena apologized publicly on Twitter.
In Mandarin.
In Mandarin for calling Taiwan a country, right? Because they don't want to lose money, right? So you're seeing it in Hollywood, you're seeing it in the NBA, you're seeing how China really does control people through their pockets. Now, what I want people to think about is, why is it that the NBA gets behind Colin Kaepernick and anyone that comes out and stands up for against police brutality, right? They're painting Black Lives Matter on every single court. They're taking off the names of all these NBA players, all of 2020, and putting up George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, right? We stand against police brutality, but they say nothing about the brutality in China, right? So people need to understand that this is about money, and even the communists. I always love speaking to the communists and the leftists. They clearly don't understand that these corporations don't care. Because if you actually care about the brutality of human beings, you need to care about it around the entire globe, okay? Not just so-called in the United States of America. If these people really care about your BLM ideology and police brutality and Black Voices Matter and speaking out against what's wrong, then why aren't these corporations doing the same thing in different countries and standing up for these people? Actually, they suppress anybody that does do that inside of the NBA. And I know this is, TPUSA, we're talking to college kids here, and I want kids to think about that. Why? Why don't they do that? But then they turn out and protest, oh yes, the NBA, we love them because they put BLM on everything. And it never really makes any sense unless you understand that this is all about money. And the communists will always tell you what, right? These socialist kids, why do we burn down buildings? Why do we riot in 2020? How does that make sense? And a lot of conservatives are asking themselves, why do these kids do this? Well, the communists will always tell you, you guys know this on a college campus, because we put people over profit. So why doesn't the NBA? Oh, but you get behind the NBA because they cater to you and put BLM on all the courts. Again, I want to push this point home because I know there's a lot of college kids listening, probably leftists that watch this stuff because they just hate TPUSA. I want you guys to just ask yourselves, like, why? Why don't they put people over profit when it comes to China, but they claim to do it in the United States?
And that's
I think that's a fair point.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what Enes Kanter is calling out here. Then you see China's response. The broadcast partner with the NBA, Tencent, that Adam Silver has basically said, hey, we got their back here, and whatever they want to do, we'll cater to. They actually stopped broadcasting Boston Celtics games after Enes Kanter came out. And then you got to remember, too, just about a couple years ago, the GM for the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey, was talking about free Hong Kong. And then when you have LeBron come out and say, hey, Daryl Morey is misinformed, no journalist is doing their job, and you see the NBA is basically hoping that their players don't speak out about the atrocities out there in a communist China.
Well, they don't want their players speaking out about anything. You're seeing the same thing with Kyrie Irving right now and then the vaccine mandates. They just want you to shut up and dribble and play the game.
That's the funny part about
it's like 2020 Black Lives Matter, but 2021 they don't, so sorry.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Commissioner Adam Silver had to say last spring in an interview with Time. Our most significant television partner is Tencent out of China, which is streaming service in China, and we have hundreds of millions of fans in China who will continue to serve. They've turned a blind eye to this thing, and they're hoping there's players out there like Enes Kanter that won't speak up. But Enes Kanter, I feel like he's just been unleashed.
Oh, he's based, it's awesome.
After, especially what happened in Turkey with him, he's realized, I'm just going for it.
Well, he is putting people over profit. Ironically, that's what you would want the corporation to do, but they're not. And I just find it so interesting that the angle the NBA is taking here is, we're going to do whatever we can to resolve the situation and work with the broadcasting service, which obviously in a communist country is run very differently than what we see in the United States. These are not all private companies. These are largely influenced, if not controlled directly by the Chinese Communist Party. That's the angle they want to take instead of serving and catering to directly the hundreds of millions of fans they have in China. Talk about putting people over profit. Put people above the government. Put people above this regime that's directly responsible for killing millions of people, putting them in work camps, forcibly aborting babies and sterilizing women if you're an ethnic minority. That's what it really means to stand up for all lives, Black Lives Matter included, but especially around the world as well. So insane to me that instead they just feel so comfortable getting in bed with the CCP directly.
And obviously nobody, conservative, leftist, does not want to see some sort of injustice, but if you're going to start painting with some sort of broad brush, like you brought up, you got Black Lives Matter on the floor, you got the WNBA that nobody watches, but they are just walking off the floor for Breonna Taylor. They're talking about Jacob Blake. They're talking about those injustices, which really aren't injustices at all, if we're going to speak bluntly. But if you want to know what a real privilege is, there's an American privilege. So someone like Enes Kanter is talking right now and saying, hey, these people here, they can't even live freely at all. They can't worship who they want to worship. They can't talk about the government the way we're able to freely speak about the government here. Like, luckily we have a show. Like, we can crap on some things at times without worrying that someone's going to knock down our door. But you have Tibetans out here.
It's so mind-blowing because I've done a lot of undercover work on Antifa and Black Lives Matter, the 2020 rights and all that stuff. And I got to be honest, like, the majority of like what the shoes these kids wear, like in all black, are Nikes. So it's just crazy to see these kids are out there rioting against social injustice and tyranny and government tyranny, and Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler 2.0, right? But they're rocking a brand that defends government tyranny and you know what I mean? Like, it's probably arguably even worse than Adolf Hitler, because communism has killed more people in human history. So it's just mind-blowing to me to see that.
Because I know for me, like, I played college sports, and Nike was our sponsor. So we got a bunch of Nike stuff, and Nike's been like a big part of me, like, playing sports throughout my life. But when you have the CEO come out and say, we're a company of and for China, that's when it's like, I will, after that, I was like, I am not buying anything Nike ever again.
I'm in the same boat. I don't buy Nike products anymore. But this is why when we talk about culture, we're talking about something so much bigger than politics and who's running for president and who you should be knocking on doors for every 4 years. We're talking about sports and what's happening on social media with these kids getting pulled into these movements like Antifa and BLM. All of these things are so intricately connected into one organism that's feeding the same narrative over and over and over again. This is good, this is bad, follow this lead, don't speak up for yourself. And of course, when you start to see prominent people who have followings, who have platforms, who are professional athletes start to do so, immediately they are attacked from all sides. The people they work for, the media, everywhere that you see scrolling through posts on social media even. And so creating that very structured culture has been the left's victory for several years now. And I love to see these conversations get to happen with TPUSA, but I wish they could even happen on a larger scale where more people that disagreed with us could see it, because there's a light bulb moment that happens for so many people when stuff like this gets brought up and when athletes start to take a stand. And I'm just very hopeful, I think, for where these conversations will lead moving forward.
Yeah, and this is not where Enes Kanter stopped. Like, he was just full guns blazing. So speaking of shoes, like you were bringing up, Drew, these are the shoes he posted on Twitter. These ones saying, Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, someone has to teach you a lesson. I will never apologize for speaking the truth. You cannot buy me. You cannot scare me. You cannot silence me. Bring it on. Hashtag freedom shoe. Hashtag Jenny the Pooh.
I love that.
It's so good. But we have to show you too, like, speaking of Nike and us talking about how it's basically in bed with the Chinese Communist Party, Enes Kanter called that out as well. So we're going to show you right now.
And Nike remains vocal about injustice here in America. But when it comes to China, Nike remains silent. You do not address police brutality in China. You do not speak about discrimination against the LGBTQ community. You do not say a word about the oppression of minorities in China. You are scared to speak up. Who makes your shoes in China? Do you even know? There are so many forced labor factories in China. For instance, Uyghur forced labor, in modern day slavery, and it is happening right now in China.
Also followed this up with a tweet that was saying, hey, owner of Nike, Phil Knight, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, let's get a plane ticket, let's go out there and see what's actually happening. Let's see what's going on with the Uyghur Muslims here. And then that's what he posted with these shoes that he actually wore against the Hornets the other night in their win there, basically just saying, you can try to visit these slave labor camps, you can see it with your own eyes.
That is so powerful.
Let's get out there. Let's see what's actually going on. And LeBron James, hey, if you're going to put equality on your shoes and actually stand for equality, maybe you should take your shoe production company out of China, out of slave labor, start making them here in America if you really stand for equality.
But then that would make them America first, and it just doesn't make sense, and everything's destroyed. So that's why it never works for them.
Yeah, and I think it was just such a powerful statement too, because you've seen so much, like you talked about, just whole social justice movement, and we're always going to stand against injustice. But if we're going to continue to just perpetuate these lies as the NBA, as the NFL, as these big organizations and leagues and teams, it's so refreshing to see someone like Enes Kanter that is basically putting his money where his mouth is.
Yeah. Quite
For
literally.
sure.
Quite literally.
And then also too, we got an important stat. So you're wondering like, well, how much basically slave labor is going on? Where are these shoes made? In China, along with Vietnam, it's a key manufacturing hub for many major footwear and apparel brands in the U.S. according to footwear distributors and retailers of America. 68% of U.S. athletic footwear came from China as far back as 1996. In 2021, we're still above 62%.
Wow. That's alarming, truthfully, at the end of the day. And what's alarming beyond just the statistic is what these conditions look like. I think it's so interesting when I go to college campuses, when I'm talking to these kids, and I'm out tabling with our chapters, most people who would consider themselves to be socialist or communist have never actually visited a socialist or communist country. Most of them haven't even been outside their own state or the states surrounding theirs, let alone the country. And so we're operating with this very narrow vantage point of what the rest of the world looks like, forgetting about this American privilege that we know everyone in this country lives with. And it's shocking to me that knowing what they know, a lot of these people have visited this country, they know what these conditions look like, they still are so okay with letting these atrocities take place and don't even feel the need to acknowledge it, let alone apologize for it.
And we're seeing so many major corporations start bowing down to China too. Like we're seeing so much like Disney.
Disney's a huge one.
That's a huge one too. Like you see like the live action Mulan, where basically you have just like right on the other side of the fence, you got slave labor going on.
Well, there were even allegations that they were using slave labor from the Uyghur Muslim camps to produce that movie, and all of a sudden that story went away and got buried because it didn't fit the narrative.
And then I'll give you the final take here, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, just to go to your first point about kids in universities that they claim to be socialists and communists, and not only have they not ever been to a country like that, but it's like they are using American privileges to communicate a truth that isn't real in their own mind, that we're oppressed and black people and minorities are oppressed, and we're experiencing government tyranny and all these things. And it just blows my mind to see how young people have been so manipulated to actually believe that they themselves have American privilege to come out and say the things that they claim they're being oppressed with. It doesn't add up. And to be honest, I think there's a lot more mental illness going on. That's a whole other conversation. But it really does ask, you have to ask yourself, why are you coming to these conclusions when you're using American privilege to say you're oppressed?
We'll be back in 90 seconds.
This has all happened before. The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got Laura, Drew, and Isabel, and it's time to introduce you to a couple members, new members of our Professor Watchlist.
My favorite, honestly. I love going into this every week with On the Front Lines. These people are insane, like way beyond what you possibly could imagine from a college professor.
They're the worst, and that's exactly why they made it on their Professor Watchlist. If you want some more information, you always got to go to professorwatchlist.org. But both of these professors are basically pushing this narrative that conservatives aren't just people that disagree with us. They're evil, they're racist, and they need to be destroyed. So here's the first one. Just incredible man. Daniel Martinez Hosang. He's a doctor, and Dr. Daniel Martinez Hosang. Sometimes I'm just like, do they even deserve the doctor title?
Okay, I have very controversial opinions on this because I was pre-med and all of my friends are in med school right now. They're two different things. We got to come up with a new naming system because nothing irked me more in my college classes than people who do not have an MD, do not have a DO, they don't have a DVM, they have a PhD, and you would call them Professor so-and-so. Oh, it's doctor, it's doctor. Oh my goodness.
And we'll call him Professor Jose.
We'll go for it, yeah.
From
Sure,
Yale University. So he's an associate professor of ethnicity, race, migration, and American studies at Yale University, and focuses his work on racism and race in politics. So he recently wrote a book with Dr. Joseph Hernandez, actually a part of our Professor Watchlist team as well. The book is titled Producers, Parasites, Patriots, Race, and the New Right-Wing Politics of Precarity. So in the book, he actually accuses conservatives of being racist and participating in multicultural white supremacy. He wanted to say that conservatives work to maintain their economic power while also highlighting and praising minority conservatives because it's an effort to portray the concept that they aren't racist.
There's a lot to unpack here. First
we
of
got
all,
plenty of time,
multicultural white culture, what was that? Multicultural white supremacy?
Yep.
Would be fascinated to hear a definition of what that looks like because I'm pretty sure the left usually says white is not a culture. So I'd be very interested to see what multicultural white supremacy sounds like. Economic supremacy for conservatives. Is he blind? We just spent an entire segment talking about how literally almost every major corporation in America is in bed with the Chinese Communist Party. They're promoting BLM and Antifa. They're closing down their stores when atrocities happen with police brutality. I mean, give me a break. To suggest that conservatives have any sort of economic supremacy in our country, you need a new degree, and you should probably stop teaching at an Ivy League school because you're not telling the truth.
Literally, and it's saying conservatives aren't doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it just because they're doing it for some sort of front, and just to look like they're not racist.
Right. I don't know why it always goes to race. It's like they don't actually have an argument for anything, so everyone's a racist.
That's what it's always dumbed down to. It's just like, that's got to be racist. I don't agree with that. That's got to be racist. But speaking of racism, there's an anti-racism curriculum that this professor has been pushing.
What's he a doctor in?
Yeah, that'd be a great question.
Yeah,
What's his degree in? I would love to know, sir.
I mean, I'll say this is, when you use the word parasite in your book and you're targeting human beings, that's very Hitlerian. I'll tell you that right now. But I'll also say is this is just clear critical race theory, right? Because when you take a look at critical race theory, they not only do they teach that, the hegemony, the power structure, which obviously to them is white people, right? But they also go as far to say with the cultural Marxism is that the hegemony is so powerful, the power structure is so powerful that they could actually brainwash minorities to actually believe that everything is normal. So when I hear that, that's just critical race theory 101, but it blows my mind how people believe this stuff, because you take a white leftist in a university right now, yeah, that's so true, I'm just full of privilege because I'm the majority, I'm by default the white supremacist. It's like, so you're pretty much just admitting, you're self-proclaiming you're a white supremacist with zero evidence. This leftist ideology takes you to that place where no one even has to prove you're a white supremacist or a racist. You're just told that. So by default, because you think you're just this higher learning individual, yeah, I am a white supremacist. They're engineering racists in universities, and they don't even realize it.
Yeah, they want people to see the color of everybody's skin. It's not the content of their character at all anymore. And that's what they're pushing in K through 12 too. And they're
it's not just college.
They're trying to educate these teachers on this, so they push this on these kids. And we also had a story we weren't able to get to in the daily briefing, but like other stuff that's being pushed on these kids, like you have basically a van that rolls up, a little mobile vaccination center, and you're making kids get the vaccine when they're not even 18 years old. Then they need a parent to actually say this is okay, but it's being pushed on them. And that's exactly what they're doing with CRT, and that's exactly what you have from Professor Ho saying here.
As a mom, that infuriates me because I always want my kids to see someone's character and not their color. So I have a kindergartner, so why should he learn about race? He has never pointed out race, and I don't want him to start learning about that. I just want him to judge someone for being a good person.
Yeah, eat dirt, scrape up your knee,
yeah,
play with
just
Legos.
go play.
All right.
Like,
Legos are evil now too.
Legos.
Yeah. Be careful.
I'm so sorry.
Legos gender. The great irony, though, is that anti-racism is the most blatant form of racism modern society has ever seen, and they're telling college students, and then it trickles down into the rest of education because these kids grow up to become teachers, and it creates this system. You have this skin color, you are in this category for the rest of your life. You will never escape that because that is how powerful society is and how powerful systemic racism is. So the irony is these people are making a career out of creating this issue of racism, pointing it out, saying it's there, and trying to come up with solutions, but they're actually just making the problem indefinite forever. They're saying there's no way to overcome this, that's just the way it is. White people, evil forever. Minorities, you're under the thumb of white people forever.
And I guarantee you, they project what they do, right? Always across the board in politics, universities, education, everything, science. I guarantee you there are more white kids in university that buy into this garbage that actually have more, they try and have more black friends to make it look like they're not racist. They actually do that. What he's accusing conservatives of doing, like, for instance, he's accusing Turning Point USA right now. Me, the minority sitting here on this couch, it's you guys trying to prove that you're not racists, okay? I guarantee you there are white kids, leftists in university, that are actually, I gotta go find some black friends so I don't look like a racist. I guarantee you that they do. They project what they do.
Yeah, they want you to second.
We should actually go do a man on the street and like test that out.
I would love to do that. We're all doing that. And then we got to make sure we get to this next one too. This is Jason McCormick, a adjunct professor at Southeast Community College and a lecturer at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. So his area of interest is identity, college composition, a lot of mumbo jumbo garbage. There he is. God, he looks like a happy guy.
He looks so
Looks
fun.
like a good guy.
It looks like it'd be depressing. You walk to the door and see that guy. Oh,
He always looks so miserable.
They are.
Professor
They're
McCormick.
miserable people.
But some of his publications, he had a publication in Huffington Post, so you can probably guess how this is going to go. In 2016, he penned this article in the Huffington Post titled, "I'm a liberal professor, and my conservative students terrify me."
So terrifying.
Okay.
They don't agree with me.
Sorry, I guess. I mean, that sounds like a personal problem to me.
And then he was accusing conservatives who saying they're not open-minded. And then I got liberal students, and luckily they're open-minded and they understand. They can have discussions. And he goes on to say he claims he was terrified not to give conservatives the equal space for the ideas in the classroom, which sounds like you don't want to have a discussion. So
he was terrified not to give them the space
he didn't
to do
want to
that?
give them the equal space.
That's your job, to give them the space to do that. You chose a career in education. In Nebraska, mind you. If you have an issue with conservative people being around you, Lincoln, Nebraska is probably not a great place to live. Like, you probably should look for a new job, pal. That's just my thought.
And everything is fear with these people. Transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia. COVID's gonna kill everybody. Like, it's always this fear mongering. Like, there's this white supremacy. It's gonna get you. It's under that rock. It's under that rock. It's always this phobia, this fear. Even these professors, they're always peddling this. I'm so terrified to talk to conservatives. It's like Isabel said, like, that's your job, bro. What are you doing? Are you just here just to educate people that think like you? You see what I'm saying? This is where these people go. And that's probably the answer to that question to him. I don't want to put words in his mouth. He would probably say yes.
And they want to ingrain these in kids' minds too. They want you to think this is a part of you and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's systemic. You were born with this, and what a disgusting way to go about things. So if you want to hear more about these stories, more about these professors, and you want to push back yourself, maybe you got an association with Yale University, take your money away from a place like that. If they're going to promote professors like this, doctors like this, take that money away, but get some more information at professorwatchlist.org. But coming up next, there is a court ruling out of Loudoun County.
Finally.
We know that finally getting some sort of justice there. We're going to break that down, and then we're going to actually go over the Attorney General hearing too. Talk about what some senators did, bashing Attorney General Garland. See you in 90 seconds.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
Politics is now on TPUSA Live. It'll be here every day in case you want to hear me out along with the rest of the Turning Point USA team. Don't miss out on all the conservative.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got the whole gang, Laura, Leyla, Drew, and Isabel. So Loudoun County, you've been hearing a lot about that in the news. We've covered that in the show too. There's been school board meetings where basically PE teachers have been let go. Parents have been called domestic terrorists. There's been a cover-up, but finally we're seeing some sort of justice here in Loudoun County. So there was a skirt-wearing boy that sexually assaulted a girl, and Loudoun County School Board and their district tried to cover it up. And then actually that daughter's dad got arrested at a school board meeting saying, why is there no justice for my daughter? But finally there was a court ruling that said that this skirt-wearing boy is no longer going to be protected. He did sexually assault this girl, and there's some sort of justice.
Thank goodness. I think this has been a long time coming. And what's shocking is this isn't even the first time that we're talking about this, because this particular sexual assault happened in May in the bathroom at one public school in Loudoun County. The county, trying to protect him and cover up the story, moved him to a different school in the same district, and he proceeded to sexually assault a different girl at his new school on the floor of a classroom, and then they tried to cover that story up as well. So thank goodness that there's some sort of justice in this conversation at all. But what blows my mind is that the district attorney here in Loudoun County was trying to pursue jail time for this girl's father, speaking up at a school board meeting saying justice has to be had for my kid. What are you going to do about this policy where my daughter can't even go to the bathroom safely without literally being raped because of your transgender bathroom policy? She was going after jail time for the dad, but was saying about this juvenile boy, biological boy, he doesn't need to even stay in juvie. He's not really a risk. What? I mean, how did we get here in 2021? And this is the result of progressive policies. They are anything but progressive, and in fact go after to attack human rights and put people in danger far more often than they do to advance human rights.
What's disgusting about this as well is the county, the district was days away from punching in some policy where teachers were going to be required to address students by their preferred pronouns and the unisex bathroom thing. So it's disturbing to hear that they covered it up for a political agenda, right? And because they chose to do that, like you said, another girl got raped because they moved him to another school, didn't warn the school, didn't warn the teachers, didn't warn anybody, right? Do you know what their response was? What the county's response, what the district said? They said, we're sorry that we didn't actually admit that there were sexual assaults that took place. And they even said, oh, we misinterpreted the questions from the parents that day when they were coming and talking to us at the school board meeting. This is darkness. This is evil. This is what this is. This is not Republican or Democrat. This is not left or right. This is total depravity, darkness, evil, and we're dealing with it right now. And it has to be dealt with aggressively. And I could understand, isn't it funny how the parents were being accused of being domestic terrorists? Oh, because they're getting mad because of the CRT. No, it was because of this. It was because a 9th grade girl got sodomized at a high school and they tried to cover it up by sending him to another school and he raped another girl. I can understand why parents are pissed right now. I'm not calling for violence, but as a parent, someone that their baby is having to deal with this, I could understand why parents are getting very angry. And I could even understand why there might be some death threats coming to some of these school officials, because we're talking about 9th grade girls getting sodomized and raped and the district covering it up at that point. And then someone might say, oh, well, Drew, you're getting a little too crazy. Well, why doesn't he just peacefully go and talk to them? The father, why doesn't he go peacefully and try and talk to the school? He did, and they arrested him. So at what point, what do you do at this point? Listen, I know I get very passionate about this stuff because we're talking about kids. We're talking about babies, and I wanted to hear you speak about this because you're a mother, right? Like, how does this bother you? Like, it is so infuriating for me, but for you, this must be very hard to see and hear.
It's heartbreaking. You send your kid to school and you think they're safe, and then the fact that no one's going to stand up for your child, and then they just try to cover it up and not take your kids, everything they've just been through, into consideration is heartbreaking.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
The loops that parents have to jump through these days, because I mean, okay, my favorite quote, and it's so pertinent right now, is Sir Edmund Burke. He said, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. But parents are always put in this position where they're essentially told or coerced into not doing anything. There are parents every day that are doxxed. Their addresses are put online if they don't agree with mask mandates or vaccine mandates now. It's absurd what parents have to go through.
Yeah, and damage is done. So there's some sort of apology later. It's just, what are you supposed to say to that father? Like, oh, I'm sorry we didn't take it serious.
And it's not even real. This is why people get mad. Because why can't you just come out and say, you know what? We effed up. This is wrong. What we did was wrong. We should have never put a political agenda over a 9th grade girl's sexuality or possibly her virginity or her just her body, right? That's what people, at the least you could do as a school district, is come out and say, we effed up here. We should not have covered this up. They should resign, is what they should do. I think that's what parents want.
And this is the biggest part of the story that nobody's talking about in the media. Everybody's focusing on the events that took place, which are absolutely heinous and disgusting and something that deserves a lot of attention. But not only did this school board choose not to say anything, they actively lied to this girl's parents, saying we have no record of any sexual assault ever taking place in a bathroom at that high school or any of the other high schools in our district, when in fact it comes out a few weeks later after this school board meeting and this apology months later that the school superintendent of the district had actually emailed all of the school board members on the day she was raped in the bathroom saying, hey, this happened at this high school, we just want you to be aware. They then lie about it to the media and to this girl's family and then come out sheepishly months later apologizing, saying, oh, actually we did know. That is evil in the flesh right there.
It is. Where are all the Me Too people that were so vocal before all this? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then when you have a teacher like Tanner Cross that we covered on the live feed, I know you go to tpusa.com/live feed, how he criticized this transgender policy, saying it was wrong and it was dangerous to have this in Loudoun County. He got put on leave. And then now you have the Loudoun County superintendent is not planning on resigning after covering up a rape.
After lying to this girl's parents saying, no, your daughter wasn't raped in the bathroom. We have no record of that. But I sent an email secretly.
And they wonder why parents are infuriated. Like,
and why they don't trust schools. Why would any parent in their right mind, honestly, right now in 2021, trust any school? Public, private, charter, I don't care. When you're seeing what's happening in the news right now with teachers actively going to their students, even as young as kindergarten or first grade, saying your parents don't know best, we know best. We're gonna teach you things here at school that you shouldn't take home. Don't tell your parents. Don't trust them ever. And by the way, by the time you become a 9th grader, you're not even going to be physically safe at school. You're going to have to use the restroom and be raped in the bathroom. But we won't tell your parents because they're the worst. They're not somebody to be trusted. They don't know what's best for you. They're too antiquated. They're not progressive enough to keep up with the times today. Why would any parent put their child in a public school? Or
and you're
trust
also
any school board?
You're seeing students step up too. So there was a big walkout. We're going to show you a video of that right here, right now from the Loudoun County School District. So students are stepping up too. They realize this is wrong, and they know and parents, they're being called domestic terrorists. And I couldn't imagine being a kid right now too, just trying to just decipher how you go about these conversations. How basically anything you say could be some sort of microaggression that gets you kicked out of school, anything like that, and then just think that you're going to school, just like you said, and it could be dangerous. You walk into the bathroom, which should be an absolute safe space. You should be able to go and just get that bathroom key, leave class, be able to come back without some sort of fear to go into that restroom. It's disgusting.
It's very, very sad. And even classrooms now with this second sexual assault taking place with the same particular individual. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, and then there was actually a good tweet from investigative reporter Luke Rosiak on Twitter. He was saying this, the Washington Post, the way they're reacting to this. I think the way the left is reacting to this is one of the most disgusting things too. Basically saying, so somebody gets raped, there's a victim, boom, this is Washington Post, this is a response. The defendant initially told detectives the second sexual act did not occur, but later said it may have happened briefly and accidentally when a knee-length skirt he was wearing got caught on his watch as the pair were fumbling around the bathroom stall. That's something that Washington Post throws out there to say, oh, it was an oops rape? What a joke.
You know, I think we have to say this because I could already hear the left right now. You transphobes, homophobes. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. I don't care what the kid's race is, gender, whatever it identifies as. The fact of the matter is that this person raped somebody, violated somebody. Because automatically, like we were talking about earlier, they automatically go to race, or they go to gender, or they go to this, and they try and get people on board by using those stupid arguments. But we're talking about such serious things here. And I think people need to be mature enough to just say, hey, let's just throw politics aside. People need to be held accountable, like now, today, not tomorrow, not 5 weeks from now, today, because that little girl got raped weeks ago, months ago. She needs justice now. You want to talk about justice? Well, now's the time, okay? Like you said, where's the Me Too movement? Where all these leftists that care all about women's rights and their sexuality and all this stuff, but when it comes to their political agenda looking bad, this becomes more about pride, and I think that's what it is. These people are unwilling to just say, this is a bad idea, and we were wrong, and we shouldn't have done it. And to me, it's sickening.
Yeah.
It's sickening 100%. That you're not willing to put your pride down and just simply be held accountable when even over a 9th grade girl that was raped. I don't care what your politics are. If you can't like be nodding to your head to what I'm saying right now, whatever political side you are on, you're probably totally depraved. You have no morality anymore, and that's a dangerous place to be.
And she's going to live with this for the rest of her life. This isn't just some instance that happened here and then you move on. She's going to live with this for the rest of her life. And then you have President Obama that was speaking at a rally, basically saying things like this. There's just fake outrage. It's just right-wing outlets just trying to get you all riled up. This is what he had to say. It's disgusting.
We don't have time to be wasting on these phony, trumped-up culture wars. This fake outrage that the right-wing media peddles to juice their ratings. And the fact that he's willing to go along with it instead of talking about serious problems that actually affect serious people, that's a shame.
It affects serious people?
He has daughters.
Yeah.
You think he would say, I'm so sorry. Why does he have to politicize it? Like, it's an issue. Like, what would you do if that happened to your daughters?
I'm sure his tone would be very different if it was Malia or Sasha who had been raped in their high school bathroom.
That's disgusting that he would get up and say that.
At the end of the day.
Well, it's coming from the top down, too. So there was Attorney General Garland. He had his hearing, and then you have senators out there that are basically saying, your only evidence of calling parents domestic terrorists is something you're getting from the National School Board Association. That's your only evidence? That's what you're saying when you have this memorandum that you're pushing out there? And to where you get to this point, like a father steps up for his daughter, that all of a sudden, before they even step up to the mic, this person could be dangerous. This person is some sort of terrorist. And this is actually what Senator Tom Cotton had to say. It was incredible. Check it out.
Do you apologize to Scott Smith and his 15-year-old daughter, Judge?
Senator, anyone whose child was raped is the most horrific crime I can imagine, and is certainly entitled and protected by the First Amendment to protest to their school board about this.
But he was cited by the School Board Association as a domestic terrorist, which we now know that letter and those reports were the basis for your.
Senator, that's wrong.
Shameful. Judge, this is shameful. This testimony, your directive, your performance is shameful.
Okay, that's not.
Thank God you are not on the Supreme Court. You should resign in disgrace, Judge.
You know what this really is? It's an abuse of power.
Yep.
It really is. Because when you're using your position of authority to silence people by placing a label on them as something as extreme as a domestic terrorist to cover up a rape, This is clearly an abuse of power. People are abusing their authoritative positions that they've been elected to, or they've gained their way to, or people entrust you to be in that position to govern or to really delegate someone's life and to do the right thing, right, in a position like that. These people are abusing their power now at this point, and they've been for decades. This is nothing new. A lot of millennials and Zoomers listening to me, they're like, oh my God, they're seeing this stuff for the first time. This stuff's been happening for a long time. You're probably just seeing it for the first time, right? But what people need to understand is this is not acceptable. And I've been saying this every show I get to go and talk about is don't get desensitized to see this stuff and be like, oh, there's another 9th grade girl raped in a high school again. It's just we can't allow ourselves to have this become the new normal somehow. There has to be a pushback. People have to get pissed off because it's not okay. And if we allow ourselves to get to this place where we are really depraved and desensitized to morality, this stuff is going to become normalized in our culture. It is. Would you have ever thought, like maybe 10, 15 years ago, like we would be where we are right now as a society morally?
But I don't think we just leave our schools just to go off and do whatever and take all our kids out and leave these institutions to the wayside. I think we run for school board. We knock these people out. It's time to take back our schools, not leave them.
Yeah, this is not a time for inaction. So thankfully, we have senators stepping up for us. We have parents at these school board meetings. We got Charlie that's pushing more people to do this. And I'm so glad we have a place like Turning Point that's telling more people, step up for these kids because they need you right now. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the dangers of illegal immigration. See you in 3 minutes.
In these United States of America, this great country of ours, we American Indians, we can be anything we want to be, except American Indians.
A lot of the soldiers were very aggressive, so the women did get raped.
What we call huelte. Huelte means a place of suffering, dying, starvation, nothing good. Just like Nazi concentration camps.
I didn't realize how corrupt things were. I didn't realize what kind of environment we were living in.
We had no running water, we had no power.
They de-incentivize people from, opportunity.
That's why our suicide rate has climbed up astronomical rates.
I moved from the poorest county in America, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, to the richest area in the country, the Navajo Indian Reservation. There is no difference. The poorest and richest reservations in our nation suffer from identical problems. This is not anything new. This is an everyday occurrence in all tribal governments.
So my life and my tale and my truth has been to fight socialism, and I'm hoping that I can wake up as many Navajos as I can to tell them that you can do this, even if I have to fight you to save you. And I think that's what I'm also projecting to my people. Even though they are so harsh on social media and they completely hammer at me, I tell them, I'll be here even if I have to fight you to save you.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got time for one last thing. Leyla, Laura, Drew, Isabel. So we've talked so much on this show about illegal immigration. We've had a border crisis. The borders are nowhere to be found at all. And we've had hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants. There's reports that they've been let into this country. So not only is this dangerous for the economy, it can also be deadly. So there was a story that came out of Polk County. Their sheriff's office reported that Ernesto Lopez Morales, 32-year-old Guatemalan illegal immigrant, actually fled the scene of a deadly crash. So ran into the back of this Hyundai Elantra and pushed the car more than 600 feet and actually killed the 5-year-old daughter in that accident. And this is what Sheriff Grady had to say. A 5-year-old beautiful baby was crushed to death. Had he been in his home country last Saturday night like he should have, this 5-year-old beautiful girl would have been alive. It's just sad. It's just such a sad story because so many people are just pushing that this is like a humanitarian crisis. These people are fleeing tough situations. We just got to let them in. And there's more reports saying that, hey, he had no insurance, no license, so fled the scene.
Well, and of course was under the influence as well, so that's a whole other topic to add in there. But the lack of response that we've seen about this particular situation from the mainstream media really eerily reminds me of the Molly Tibbet situation a few years ago. That simply because it was someone who was an illegal immigrant or a migrant, if the left wants to call them that, the story's never going to get reported. The family probably won't have the attention to the story that they deserve to have some closure with this situation. And I hope that law enforcement and the justice system goes after this with everything they've got. But I have a hard time believing that will be the case because there's just so much fear of backlash in pushing back against the narrative that our border should be open, we shouldn't even have a border, everything should just be unchecked. So I worry that this person won't be held accountable for their actions simply because they're an illegal immigrant.
And this person is being held on just under $23,000 bond.
Yeah.
After killing somebody.
Stories like this actually happen way more than we even realize. And I'm sitting here, I live in Texas, and I'm always like, what is our governor doing? You know, somebody like Governor DeSantis, I think, would have had this situation closed off far before anything like that happened. And it's really, I mean, we're just going to keep seeing really terrible, tragic things happening like this. And it's time to just close up that border.
You know, he was from Guatemala.
Guatemala,
You know what's interesting about that is when Biden was on the presidential debate stage with the Democrats obviously the last one, he clearly said we need to immediately surge the border. He was talking about South America in context. That's not taken out of context. He literally said that. People can go rewatch the debate. That's what he proclaimed to the world. And that's backed up even by the Guatemalan president, because when Kamala Harris went down to South America, when he was speaking, he clearly said it's their rhetoric that's caused this. When they started saying that they need to surge the border, when Democrats started talking like this on the debate stage in the last election cycle, he said the cartels started to mobilize in my own country to get people over there. So we are starting to see the negative consequences of rhetoric from the Democrats and from President Biden. I stopped calling this a border crisis a long time ago because this is a strategic border crisis. You mean to tell me that Joe Biden doesn't know what's going on at the southern? You mean to tell me that Joe Biden doesn't know about the criminal cartel organizations in Mexico, Guatemala, these South American countries, the operations? They're making millions of dollars a day off of people alone, children, women, little kids getting raped on their way to the southern before they even get to Mexico, getting raped through Mexico before they even get to the southern border of the United States of America. You mean to tell me that Joe Biden has been in politics for more than 47 years and doesn't know that that stuff takes place? This is what bothers me about this situation, because these Democrats, these politicians that have been in politics for decades, they not only are just turning a blind eye to this, they know how it works. They know how the criminal cartels take advantage of people at the southern border, and they're making millions a day. And someone like this, I hate to say this, but someone that gets killed like that in the United States by an illegal immigrant, in my opinion, in the mind of this Democratic Party that just doesn't value life at all, is a necessary casualty for the greater cause. They want to change the electoral. They're importing millions of people. I'm talking to Border Patrol agents on a daily basis. The numbers that are being reported are worse. This is why you'll hear Trump, right? When it gets reported by the federal government, the numbers at the southern border, right? While Biden's in office, it's the hundreds of thousands, right? Why will you always hear Trump on stage at a rally say it's millions? That's actually the accurate number, because the numbers are coming out from the Border Patrol agents, and those are just the ones they know about. There's so many people coming into this country, it's going to shift the electorate, and we're going to see it. Why do you think they want these people to vote? It's all strategically, I might sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we're going to see this unfold in the next few years.
And I think in general, this is just to wrap this up, like this should make your stomach turn. Like these are tough conversations we're having here, hearing about Loudoun County, here about this situation here. It should make you feel uncomfortable. But really appreciate you guys jumping on the couch here, having some good conversations, sharing some truth. Get tickets for AmFest, tpusa.com/AmericaFest. Coming up next, we got Real America with Graham Allen and Benny on the Block with Benny Johnson. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
I have a restraining order from children. I can't get too close. Very sorry. I'll try though. Her hair looks so sniffable.
So creepy.
Anything to say to Joe Biden, ma'am?
Let's go, Brandon.
Anything to say to Joe Brandon?
Yeah.
Hello, citizen.
Too many terrible things.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Joe Biden.
I hate you.
Benny Johnson here. The Biden Challenge, a new show today. We're going to wear a Joe Biden mask and stand in the middle of a crowded area and see what people say to Joe Biden. It's our Halloween special, Sam. So we can't think of something scarier than this. This is what we're gonna look like.
Let's go see what people have to say to Joe Biden.
Yeah, you just made my day.
You have anything to say to Joe Biden?
Yeah. You already know what I'm talking about, too.
Nice necklace, fellow citizen. Let's go, Brandon. I think everyone loves me. My name's Biden, not Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
But my name's Biden, not Brandon. Hello. I have a restraining order from children. I can't get too close. Very sorry. I'll try though. Her hair looks so sniffable. They've been telling me to do this from children for years, Sam. This is why I like social distancing. The restraining orders have caused me to social distance for a very long time. Why aren't you masking?
Don't need the mask.
You should have 4 masks on.
Yeah, right.
Have you taken your daily COVID shot? Thank you for masking. Thank you for masking. Hello. How are your gas prices?
How are our gas prices?
I did that.
You do that.
I did that. My bad. Sir, do you have anything to say to your president? How about let's go, Brandon? Anything to say to President Joe Biden? Oh, I heard. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Anything to say to Joe Brandon?
Yeah.
Hello, citizen.
Too many terrible things.
How do you like the job I'm doing?
I don't.
Here's where my polls are. Standing next to my current polling.
So creepy.
Anything to say to Joe Biden, ma'am? Happy Halloween. Does anyone have ice cream? Where's my ice cream? Can the president get some ice cream? This is all I live for. Anything nice to say to Joe Biden?
I love you.
I love you too, but Jill tells me I can't tell women that anymore because of the lawsuit. Hello, ma'am. I'm Joe Biden.
I hate you.
Oh, because I ruined your Christmas? No, who is Brandon? You are like the 30th person who called me Brandon. I'm Joe Biden. I'm Joe Biden. Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran with some bad boys. Corn Pop.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Those look great. Can I smell them? I love to smell things. Please don't file a restraining order against me. Buy your presents early this year, kids. Supply chain crisis. Do you have anything to say to your president? I love you too, but Jill told me not to say that in public. Hello. Anything to say to Joe Biden? What? Anything to say to Joe Biden? Oh. Let's go, Brandon, sir. Hello. Anything to say to your dear president? Oh, hello. How are you? How's your day? Young youth? Yeah. Do you put on the record player to go to sleep at night?
No.
Oh. I know much about the youths. Do you use TikTok?
No.
Facebook?
Facebook? No, you have with Facebook and Twitter, though. How do you not know that?
I have people for that.
You have other people for that?
I have people for that, youngling.
All right, well, thank you.
What about Spinstagram?
Instagram?
They didn't have those things in my day. We would write notes on a pigeon and put it on its leg and send it. Please help. I don't know who I am or where I am. I've fallen and I cannot get up. Is this a life alert? Please help. Please, someone. Where am I? Who am I? Everyone keeps saying I'm Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Oh, thank you. Who is this Brandon? The last name's Biden. Hello.
Hey,
why does everyone call me Brandon?
Let's go, Brandon.
Oh,
thank
you, sir.
Have a great day, sir.
It's Biden, but Brandon's fine too. No one's explained to me who Brandon is.
I swear it's Brandon. You're Brandon.
You seem like an artistic fellow. Could you buy some of my son's artwork?
It depends on the artwork. Does it come off the computer or does it have more of this junk picture? I've heard there's a lot of junk pictures for your son.
I don't want to talk about that.
I wouldn't either.
I'll ask Twitter to shut that down.
No, I know, but what about the border though?
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I have a flight to Afghanistan to get to. How's your lunch?
Very
good. Good to hear. Glad there's still food. Hey Sam, look. It's a sign for my border. Hello. Hello, young man. Hello. Make America Brandon better. Build back Brandon. Oh, Sam, a step. I'm not good at these.
Okay. It's not good to be Joe Biden. I've been Joe Biden for about 30 minutes, and I gotta tell you, it's not good to be Joe Biden. I wouldn't like to wake up every day with this and then connected to all of that. We're also in a pretty progressive area of, Florida here, and so if we're like right in downtown in this big metropolitan progressive area, holy crap! Like Sam, would we even like survive if we wore this at a NASCAR race? No way, no way. Well, that's been Benny on the Brandon, I guess. Benny on the block, Biden Brandon. Benny Brandon. That's what it was like living inside of Joe Biden's wrinkly reptilian skin for a moment. And just a final insult to injury, everyone. Made in China. Stamped right on the inside of Joe Biden's face. Made in China. There we go. All right. Everyone, enjoy your Halloween. Enjoy your Halloween. Dress up as something scary, but not as scary as this. See ya. Hey, it's Benny Johnson here, Turning Point USA's Chief Creative Officer. If you like this video you just watched, be sure to subscribe to the official Turning Point USA channel and never miss an episode. See you guys next week.
What's going on, America? I am Graham Allen, and welcome to the newest episode of Good God.
Hi, everyone.
That's America.
Hi, my name is Bunny, and I use fun pronouns. So who am I? I am a gender-fluid, trans, femme, pan-romantic, great ace, white-passing Japanese person.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Halloween episode of Real America. If you're like me, the rate that the country's going, I just kind of want Michael Myers to stab me in the face. Some of you may even be thinking that we're living in an absolute Freddy Krueger nightmare.
Wanna suck the face?
No.
But that's what happens when you literally have Slender Man as the commander-in-chief.
Come on, man.
So today we're going to talk about some of the scariest things that have happened this week in America. Starting off, is there a love triangle taking place in the halls of Congress? AOC puts this really interesting video that could be summed up as nothing more than just downright creepy about her relationship with Bernie Sanders.
Yes, I talk with Bernie on the phone a decent amount, not just because we're colleagues, but he's legitimately my friend and makes me happy.
Sounding a bit like Chucky there at the end, saying something like, "Do you want to play?"
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Speaking of Chucky, I mean, here he is, here's Jen Psaki. She's basically his mom. Speaking of the fact that we basically are pretty much on the brink of the purge may be happening in America. Here's an example of what not to do if you are a man towards a woman.
Say it to my face now. Say it to my face now. Tell me to take a chill pill. Say the word chill pill.
Oh, what?
Mind your business. Say it again.
That's OD.
Say it again.
That's OD.
I'm tired of you niggas in my black business. You understand? Mind your business.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This is disgusting, and maybe you want Michael Myers to stab this person.
Somebody in there?
But the scarier thing to me is all of the beta male spineless cowards that stood around while an adult man punched a female in the face. Look at them. Look how stupid they all look. Look at them. That is what a beta male looks like spineless cowards, every single one of them. Their mothers need to go back and try again. Speaking of beta males, there's nothing more terrifying than members of Congress who think they know things about guns when in fact they don't. In this terrifying clip of Representative Cohen, he says he does not know of one situation where a good guy stopped a bad guy with a gun.
Show me a case, please. We didn't have them in Memphis, where a good man or woman with a gun protected and stopped the use of a weapon. That canard doesn't occur. That just dog won't hunt.
So we did all of 5 minutes of research and we found this many cases. The most famous of these being Jack Wilson, who stopped a shooter in a church. 1 shot, 1 kill.
6 seconds of terror, capturing the moments lives were shattered and dozens more saved. Jack Wilson seen here firing a single shot, killing the gunman before he could harm anyone else.
I don't feel like I'm a hero. I was doing what I needed to do to protect the people of the congregation.
And another terrifying thing, the border is absolutely out of control. Let's face it, it's an invasion at this point, and this is what it looks like. In random, but not completely unrelated news, the search for a permanent Jeopardy host still is in play. Rest assured, we found what could be the most articulate, most intelligent human being that this world has ever known.
I'm Cody, pronouns em, airs, or zem, zers, or really any neo-pronouns that aren't ze, her, hers. I am a white, transmasculine, femme, non-binary, temporarily mostly able-bodied, neurodivergent, obsessive-compulsive, chronically ill, culturally Jewish, Unitarian Universalist, non-monogamous, demi-low romantic, gray demi-bisexual, survivor of acute and complex trauma, millennial, and cat parent in mental health recovery.
I don't know, what do you think, Alex?
I hate my job.
In closing this episode, I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you. Thank you to everyone who has watched Real America. From the very beginning, it was our goal to have fun with this and to be able to talk about the things that are going on in our country, add a little bit of humor, and point out the blatant hypocrisy that runs rampant throughout the world and especially in America today. We've had a lot of laughs, we've had a lot of cries, we have literally gone through an entire pandemic together. Moving forward, this will be the last episode, not because of bad things, but because of new things that lie ahead of us. We have so many things to be grateful for, we have so many adventures left ahead, and we have every intention on continuing to fight every single day for conservative values across the entire nation. So, for the very last time of this show, Real America, I want to say thank you so much for watching. And as always, I'm Graham Allen, and for those who can't, I'll say it for you. And P.S. shameless promo, make sure to check out America Fest in Phoenix. I will be there. It's going to be an amazing lineup. Anyone who's anyone is going to be there, unless you're a loser and you suck. What's up, guys? Graham Allen here. If you liked the video you just watched, be sure to subscribe to the official Turning Point USA channel to keep up with everything we've got going on now.
Hey everyone, Jon Root here. Stay tuned because coming up next on TPUSA Live, you can watch the newest episode of Politics where host Alex Clark explains another pop culture documentary. This time she details the Waco Siege, which was another clear example of government overreach that completely redefined how society sees religious extremism. Next on Politics.
I wish that I could say American government overreach stopped with Ruby Ridge, that perhaps the FBI, ATF, and other government entities learned a lesson when the Weaver family's experience on the mountaintop came to a fatal end. But that wasn't the case at all. So today I'm back with yet another American story of government power gone wrong, when innocent Americans, literally children, paid the cost of government overreach with their lives. Let's step away from the mountain in Idaho and head far south to Waco, Texas, not even 1 year after the Ruby Ridge siege. Waco is a small town located in central Texas with green, grassy plains and a quiet American feel. Before Joanna Gaines rebranded the town with her Magnolia Market and Keith Raniere brought addictive cult stories back to our living rooms, there was David Koresh, a notorious American cult leader, and a very different Waco, Texas. What transpired in the all-American town was a moment that would haunt modern American history forever. It redefined how society sees religious extremism here at home and how we talk about the idea of a cult. More importantly, it highlighted a dark reality that not even the freest society is exempt from: government overreach. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Waco Siege: Religion, Cults, and Tragedy in Texas. The Waco Siege lasted 51 days, but the religious sect that came to be known as a cult in the 90s had been around for more than 50 years. Let's go all the way back to the 1930s, when an immigrant named Victor Houteff broke away from Seventh-day Adventist theology and formed a group called the Davidians. He believed that he was destined to be part of a kingdom during an apocalypse that was guaranteed to occur. The kingdom, he argued, would be like the Davidic kingdom in the Bible. In preparation for the end of the world, he bought a compound in Waco, Texas, and called it Mount Carmel, prophesying that it would be the very site of the post-apocalyptic kingdom. If this isn't a power trip, I don't know what is. Under Houteff, the Davidians functioned semi-communally. They stuck to themselves as much as possible and worked together to sustain the community by farming and constructing their own buildings, electrical, telephone services, sewage, and water systems. They all put their work, time, and money into this place, all because they believed their leader was this Christ-like figure who was going to lead them through the end times. Spoiler alert, the world did not end, but their world sorta did when Houteff died in 1955. This meant that a whole new power trip had room to arise, despite the fact that Houteff's widow, Florence, was sort of in charge for a second. A man named Benjamin Roden had been a follower of Houteff's and saw this opportunity before him. He pushed his way into power by claiming that God himself was talking to him and formed what we know as the Branch Davidians. Not all of the group was okay with this, but Houteff's widow was making outlandish claims too. She said that the whole world would end in 1959, but she was also wrong. Florence ultimately left the group, which allowed Roden and his few followers to break off and form the Branch Davidians, after Roden declared himself to be what the group actually needed, a message that didn't necessarily resonate with everyone. Still, he deemed himself the leader and then claimed the property New Mount Carmel. Eventually, he died, so the group was taken over by his widow, Lois, and son, George. Their authority, however, was short-lived. In 1983, a controversial man named Vernon Howell joined the group. Let's do a quick mini deep dive into this guy, shall we? Vernon was born to a single teenage mother in Houston, Texas in 1959. His childhood was difficult, and he was raised primarily by his grandparents. At an early age, he was introduced to the Seventh-day Adventist denomination. As a young man, he reportedly believed that God had spoken to him, saying that he was God's chosen Messiah. Before he turned 18, Vernon had memorized the Old and New Testaments of the Bible. However, his intrigue with the Bible and his church attendance didn't keep him from having problems in the church itself. Vernon ended up falling out with church leadership after he aggressively pursued the daughter of a pastor. Random fact, but he also attempted to become a rock star in Los Angeles before finding his way back to the church. So he left Los Angeles and returned to Texas and made his way to Waco. By then, he'd given up his dream of being a rock star and claimed to be a prophet instead. But conflict with leadership was still a character trait of his. Remember, Benjamin Roden had died, leaving the Branch Davidian congregation to Lois and George Roden. Then Vernon showed up, and of course, he was as power-hungry as ever, and he didn't hold back from confronting the group. Naturally, he found a rival in George Roden. Allegedly, Vernon had an affair with Lois, which could not have helped George's feelings towards Vernon at all. In the meantime, he was forming his own group of Branch Davidian followers. Still, that wasn't enough. They want absolute power. Remember, he thought of himself as the Messiah. There was no room for two. just him. And he needed to build up his own army of followers. Nothing could stand in his way. Even early on, it's clear now that he had a belief in violence as an answer for achieving what he wanted. Tensions between Vernon and George mounted so high that in 1987 they had a shootout, which resulted in attempted murder charges against Vernon and some of his supporters and accomplices. They were eventually acquitted due to a mistrial, and George was eventually found guilty of murder for an entirely different altercation. In 1990, Vernon changed his name to David Koresh, the name that ultimately would be made infamous by the entire world. Maybe some of you have heard the name before today. Interesting fact that shows just how narcissistic this guy was. The name he chose reflects King David and King Cyrus from the Bible. Cyrus equals Koresh. This ties back into the original Davidic kingdom intrigue that the group had way before Koresh came along. One report emphasized the importance of this name change. The idea of the Davidic kingdom meant something to the Branch Davidian followers, and it was actually very manipulative of Koresh to change his name to something that word for word ties into the belief system. It even says that this distinction between Koresh and the Branch Davidians makes the argument that the two were and are separate things. It's what separates the idea of religion in cult. Koresh led the group commune style. They lived isolated and under the belief that the world was ending and he was leading them through it. Anything beyond the community was bad. They all lived and worked together on 77 acres in a building where the men slept on one floor and the women slept separately on another floor with Koresh. He regarded himself as the sinful Messiah since the Christ before him had been perfect. Koresh felt that by being a sinful Messiah, he could relate to people more. He also believed that any child he fathered would be sacred. He used the teachings of spiritual weddings to justify sleeping with any woman he wanted. One former member named Grace Adams claimed that women needed to sleep with David in order to make it to heaven. It's reported that he fathered over 20 children, primarily with women who weren't his wife, Raish. The men were not exempt from Koresh's rules and were ordered to be celibate. The one major factor that separated Koresh from Hotep and Roden was his intrigue with weapons and even violence. His predecessors led commune style, but they'd been pacifists. I'm not sure how they prepared for the apocalypse they preached about, but Koresh and his followers stockpiled ammo and weapons. Okay, pause. You have to wonder, how many faux apocalyptic aficionados was it gonna take to get this group to understand that the world wasn't ending anytime in the 20th century? Still, the Davidians continued their weapon collection, and eventually, someone took notice. That someone was Larry Gilbreth, who worked as the UPS deliveryman to the compound. Larry made so many trips to the Branch Davidian compound that they became familiar faces to him. In order to access the property to make the deliveries, he had to go through a checkpoint, which was, of course, run by the Davidians. After some time, Larry became suspicious of the increasingly heavy packages he was delivering. One day, he discovered, by accident, that one of the packages contained grenades. Larry contacted authorities, and soon after, an investigation was launched. Larry hadn't been the only one in the small town to take note of the isolated group either. The Waco Tribune-Herald published the first piece of a series about Koresh, titled The Sinful Messiah, which went after Koresh and the group. The paper ran the first story, much to the detriment of the secret mission the ATF had brewing, so the next day the authorities made their move. A move that would be questioned even up until now. A move I myself believe we should question. One day later, on February 28th, 1993, 5 days after I was born, the ATF descended upon the Branch Davidians' property. Obviously, the hope was to catch them when they were least expecting anything, but the group had been tipped off to the ATF's intentions because of a news crew that had heard about the investigation and wanted in on the story. When the crew came across the mailman on the property, it revealed why it was there. Little did the crew know that the mailman was a member of the Branch Davidians, who then warned Koresh of the incoming ATF. Controversially, even the ATF learned from an undercover agent the Davidians had been made aware of the mission. Some argue that the ATF should have called it off right then and there, but it didn't. Koresh's prophecies of preparing for a war would come true. Witnesses from both sides can't say for certain who fired first, but the shooting started almost instantly that day, and it didn't end until 6 Branch Davidians and 4 ATF agents died, and over 30 people, including Koresh, were injured. The unforeseen long-term result would be a 51-day siege and even more tragedy. The following day, the FBI took things into its own hands. Very quickly, it was able to negotiate the release of more than 12 children. But Koresh's message was clear. He was not coming out, and neither was his family. The FBI closed in with tortuous tactics, an effort to get Koresh to budge. Temperatures at night reached freezing lows, so they cut electricity to the compound. Then, the FBI used bright lights and loud noises to deprive the group of sleep. One noise was the crying sound of rabbits being killed. Still, nothing. By then, it seemed like this was about getting the remaining children out safely, but the exact opposite was about to happen. Finally, on April 19th, the FBI had had enough. It ramped up efforts with military vehicles and began driving tanks into the sides of the compound, which housed the remaining 80 or so inhabitants. It then began using tear gas for 6 whole hours. It's been reported that the FBI knew the adults had masks, but the children did not. The entire ordeal came to a head when smoke began coming out of a second-story window. In no time, the entire complex was engulfed in flames and smoke. 75 people, plus Koresh, died that day. Of the dead, Koresh, 11 of the adults, and 5 children were found shot to death amongst the remnants of the fire. Think about this. A religious group, confronted by government officials, turned into children, dying horrific deaths deep in a bunker below their home as it went up in flames. These people burned alive. Why the fire started has never been confirmed. What we do know is that the government's overreach of power at the start of the siege and throughout continues to beg the question, why did any of this happen? Why didn't they halt the operation when they knew it was no longer confidential? And how did a fire begin so conveniently once the feds advanced? I don't know about you, but the Waco Siege is not something I learned about in school, which I think is a total shame. This should be added to the list of topics that are implemented in grade school curriculum because it's a lesson in determining when the government goes too far. We're living in a time when critical thinking is not just discouraged, but prohibited. And the damage is that younger generations don't recognize government overreach, even when it interrupts their day-to-day lives. In my honest opinion, I think the feds had no right to incite the Waco situation the way it did. Sure, the group was weird, and there are still questions surrounding what went on behind the closed doors of the compound, but we have freedom of religion for a reason, even when that religion is extra fringe. I'm of the belief that cults should be allowed to exist. It's an American right to believe the way you want to believe, so long as you are not harming anyone. I get that there are speculations about the group, but there are so many answers we don't have, and regardless, did it all have to go down in such a final way? Scientologists have a huge case built against them from former members. They are a religious cult, hybrid, or whatever, and I don't see any feds knocking on their door, probably because it's guarded by Hollywood. But in a small town in Waco, things went much differently. The whole ordeal began because the government did not like that a group of religious people had a lot of weapons. The result was not the protection of innocent American lives. Instead, the innocent lives died a horrific death after an agonizing 51 days of intimidation and torture. There were no winners in this situation, and too many lives were lost, including the lives of children. Today, only dozens or so of Davidians exist under the name Branch, the Lord our righteousness. The community has never been the same. Not a fan of Koresh. I'm not defending what he stood for or what he did or didn't do when he was leading the group, but I will always stand against big government, and I think we should all be reminded of times in American history when the government crossed the line. Please support us by liking this episode and all the work that goes into Pop Docs. Comment what you thought about Waco, if you live in Waco or if you visited the museums or any of that stuff dedicated to Waco, and if, this has changed your mind at all on government intervention when it comes to cults. Also share this episode, share stories, and hit that save button. We're back tomorrow with an episode at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. This one is gonna be special because it is the Friday before Halloween, but I think you're gonna like it. We're gonna go through all of the top serial killers from each state. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Poplitics.